Let's talk about the planning of speaking part 2. And by planning, I mean the preparation you do at home before the exam day, not the 1 minute you are given during the exam. So, to ace the part 2 of the speaking test, you have to be able to do two things: prepare your model subjects and learn how to combine them together. This video contains two parts: how to prepare model subjects and how to combine them. So let's talk first about what are the model subjects. As you know, there are 5 common themes in the speaking part 2. The exam will ask you to describe a person, an activity, a thing, an experience, or a place. So when you practice speaking part 2 at home, you have to come up with an example for each theme. That's what I call a model subject. This way, whatever question you are practicing, you can apply your model subject into any question. For example, for people, I have an imaginary friend called Mr. Bean, and if the exam asks me about people, I always talk about this friend Bean. Doesn't matter if they tell me to describe a teacher, a famous person, or a fictional character. I always talk about Bean. The same things goes for the other themes. I prepare at home several model subjects for each of the common themes, so that I can use my subjects to answer any questions. Let's see how we can prepare our model subjects. Firstly, people. You need to come up with a description of your model subject. Remember to prepare a very brief one. So for people, I'll come up with the name, which is Mr. Bean. His profession is a comedian. And a special thing about him is that he's a funny guy. And then you can apply this person into any question for the theme people. For example, if you get the questions, describe a person you think wears unusual clothes. You can say, I would like to talk about Mr. Bean, a hilarious comedian whose fashion style is somehow considered quirky. Or describe a person who often helps people. You can say, I'd like to talk about Mr. Bean, a hilarious comedian who frequently organizes charitable events to assist the unfortunate. This works for any situation, regardless of the type of the individual that the question is about. For example, if your model subject is someone that you don't personally know and you get this question, describe a friend that you often spend time with. You can pretend this person is your friend and say, the person I'd like to talk about is a friend of mine who is a comedian. He's a hilarious guy and is always full of laughter around him. Or for questions that make you describe a person that is not real, like describe a character in a book that you like, you can still say that one of my favorite fictional characters is Mr. Bean from The Life of Bean. He's a hilarious comedian who has a successful career. You can see that I also made up the book called The Life of Bean, which is totally okay. Now let's prepare a model subject for an activity. Let's choose tennis, played on weekends, and it requires physical and strategic abilities. And then we can apply this to any questions about activities. Describe an activity you like doing when you are on holiday. When I'm on holiday, one of the pastimes I love to do is tennis. I can't go a week without a match, so I always make sure to find tennis partners when holidays are coming. Describe an activity you enjoy doing when you are alone. You can say that tennis doesn't fit as an activity to play alone, but you can still talk about tennis if you know how to use your model subject. An activity I enjoy doing when I'm alone is playing tennis. While tennis is often seen as a social sport, I find it equally enjoyable and fulfilling to play solo. Of course, in the extended version, you have to explain how you can play tennis alone, like hit the ball against a wall or use a machine that shoots the ball to you. Let's take another example where tennis doesn't fit in. Describe an activity you did to learn another language. I use tennis as a fun way to learn another language. What I do is trying to find tennis clubs where they speak the language that I'm trying to excel in. So it's all about improvising. You need to practice to use your model subjects in different situations. This is how I prepare a model subject for things. Describe a gadget you use every day. An item that I can't live without is my iPhone. It's an essential part of my daily routine and plays a key role in helping me stay up to date with current information. Now for this theme, it can be challenging to apply your model subject in every question, because the questions can ask you about different specific things, like describe a movie that you like. You can't say the movie I like is my iPhone, right? It's ridiculous. So we need a little workaround in these questions, and I will talk about it in the second part of this video. For experience, I use the birthday of my daughter to talk about. Describe an occasion when you got angry. I like to talk about my daughter's birthday, which took place last month. There was a mix-up with the reservations at the venue that made me furious. Describe a positive experience that you had as a teenager. One of my joyful experiences as a teenager is the trip to the mountains with my classmates on my birthday 10 years ago. In this example, you see that I changed a little bit from my daughter's birthday to my birthday to make more sense, because the question asks about my childhood. For places, let's use a library. Describe a favorite place when you like to relax. One of my favorite places to unwind is a local library next to my house. Its tranquil, spacious environment creates a peaceful retreat. Describe a place you enjoy spending time outdoors. A special place I usually enjoy is a spacious library garden. It's a perfect place for reading while immersing myself in nature. Again, the question can ask you about a specific place, so sometimes you can't talk about your prepared model subject, like describe a country you would like to visit. In this case, you have to change a little bit, which I'll talk about in the second part. Now, if you want to have many things to talk about in the speaking part 2, you have to know how to combine your model subjects together. Doesn't matter which theme the question is about, the 5 themes are always interrelated. When you combine them together, they become a story with different aspects that flows smoothly. A mistake that many learners make is that they only talk about one specific theme that the question is asking, and don't say anything about the other theme because they think is not relevant to the topic. But this is not true. Let's go back to my model subjects. For example, if the question asks me about a person, I'm going to talk about my friend Bean and say how we spend time playing tennis together. I can include my iPhone being broken when we played tennis last week, and that Bean comes to my daughter's birthday party every year, and that he owns a spacious library. You see, when the question is about one thing, we can always include other things to make our story more interesting and appealing to the listeners, just as how we chit-chat in real life. Now, for the question that asks you about specific things that are totally different to your prepared model subjects, such as describe a country you would like to visit, I can't talk about my library, because it's not a country, and there's no way to improvise a library into a country. Or describe a movie that you like. I can't introduce my phone in this situation. So it's best to prepare several model subjects for each of the 5 common themes. This way you can choose between them according to the question in the exam room. Now let's do some examples for the 5 themes. First of all, people. Describe a person you know who collects something. For this question, I'll still talk about my friend Bean. For things, I'll replace iPhone with another model subject, which is a collection of comic books, and I keep the remaining subjects unchanged. Of course, I don't have to talk about all the bullet points that I prepared, because that would exceed the 2-minute limit. So let me tell you about my friend Bean, who's a really passionate collector. We first met at a tennis club, and he's really strong and has this amazing strategic mind for the game. Plus, he's hilarious, always making people laugh with his witty jokes. As a matter of fact, Bean's a pretty well-known stand-up comedian around here. We hit it up right away and have been good friends ever since. So Bean had mentioned his collection to me a bunch of times, but it wasn't until he offered to let me use his library for my daughter's birthday party that I got to witness it for the very first time. His library is like a treasure chest of old and rare books, especially vintage and rare comic books. As someone who's loved comic books since childhood, I found myself lost in a world of imagination and nostalgia the moment I stepped in. The variety of comics was mind-blowing, and I was super impressed by his knowledge about each piece. Bean really takes care of his collection. He meticulously stores his books in perfect conditions to keep them safe, using special sleeves and cases for each comic, and maintaining a controlled environment to avoid humidity and temperature fluctuations. In short, Bean's an amazing guy with diverse range of interests and talents. From playing tennis to making people laugh as a comedian, he's just a really fun and interesting person to be around. Next theme, activity. Describe an activity you usually waste your time on. I'm going to use all of my prepared subjects earlier and just remove several pieces of information. Let me tell you about this activity I often spend too much time on, tennis. But let me be perfectly clear that I enjoy playing this sport. But honestly, I'm not that great at it. Tennis requires a lot of stamina and strategy, which aren't really my strong suits. But hey, it's a blast, and I get to hang out with my friend Bean. Bean's a hilarious guy and a comedian by profession, so you can imagine how our tennis matches go. He's always cracking jokes and keeps everyone laughing. We play every weekend and it's become a bit of a tradition. It's funny how much time we waste trying to keep up with our tennis routine. Even when the weather is so bad that we can't play it outside, we head over to Bean's library, which is spacious and quiet and has this top floor dedicated to video games. There we play virtual tennis. It's not quite the same, and honestly, it feels like a bit of a cop-out. There were times when this habit brought disasters to me though. For instance, last month on my daughter's birthday, I was so caught up in a game that I completely forgot about it. She was really upset for a whole week. And to make it up to her, I ended up having to buy her a new iPhone since she had broken her old phone screen all by herself. Previously, I had told her that she couldn't get a new one because she had to take responsibility for her belongings. But tennis totally ruined it for me. So much for teaching disciplines, right? At the end of the day, I have to admit that I spent too much time on tennis when I could be doing something more productive. The next theme is things. Describe a piece of furniture in your home. I'll change the iPhone to a dining table because my iPhone can't be a piece of furniture, but I can still make the iPhone relevant to this question. I'll also change tennis to table tennis. The other things remain unchanged and some information will be ignored. There's a piece of furniture in my apartment that really means a lot to our family, our dining table. The story behind how we got it is actually kind of funny. Last month, for my daughter's birthday, we went to a shopping mall to pick out a gift. She originally wanted a new iPhone because she'd accidentally cracked the screen on her old one. But I said no, telling her she needed to be more responsible to her stuff. To my surprise, she then asked for a specific desk she spotted in the store. The funny thing is, I recognized the desk because I'd seen it before at our local library. I used to sit at that same table a lot in the library study area, and I kind of liked it that I'd actually thought about getting one for our home. It's a beautiful, sturdy table with a warm, rich walnut finish that has a bit of elegance. The legs are solid wood, so it's really stable, and they're slightly tapered, which gives it a stylish yet simple look. The table isn't huge, but it has this cool, extendable feature that lets it expand when we need more space. That's perfect when we have guests over, so everyone can fit comfortably. When we're not using it for meals, it easily turns into a workspace or a drawing station for my daughter. The surface is smooth and flat, which makes it great for writing, drawing, or working on a laptop. We've also discovered that the expandable feature is great for entertainment too. We attach a net to the edges and use it as a table tennis surface. My daughter and I love having home games on the weekends. It's a blast. At first, the desk wasn't even for sale since it was just a display model. But as it turns out, the store is owned by my friend Bean, who also happens to be my table tennis partner. When he saw how much my daughter and I loved the desk, he agreed to sell it to us. Since then, it has become a centerpiece in our home, doing double duty as both a practical table and a source of fun during family gatherings. For experience, describe a time when you organized a happy event successfully. I'm going to talk about my daughter's birthday party. The other things don't change, and let's remove some info. I recently had the pleasure of organizing a birthday party for my daughter, and it turned out to be a truly memorable event. I teamed up with my good friend Bean, who helped me considerably during the preparation. 3 days before the big day, I still had no idea how to plan a fun birthday party for my daughter. It was a weekend, and I met up with Bean at the tennis club, as usual. I told him about the biggest challenge I was facing, finding a venue on such short notice. Luckily, Bean owns a library and offered to let me use it for the occasion. He even promised to help out with some performances, since he's a pretty well-known comedian in the area. Bean's library is spacious, with 4 floors, and the top floor is a separate playroom for kids. It's got all the latest arcade games like shooting, racing, horse riding, etc. We put a lot of effort into decorating the space with colorful balloons, streamers, and other festive decorations, turning the room into a cheerful setting. The event was a great success, filled with laughter and delightful conversations. All of my daughter's friends came to celebrate her special day, along with family members and close friends of mine. With his talents as a comedian, Bean put on a stand-up comedy show and brought memorable laughter to both the kids and their parents. One of the highlights of the night was when I presented my daughter with her birthday gift, a brand new iPhone. I chose this gift because her old phone had a cracked screen for the past 2 months, and it was really hard for her to use it for both studying and entertainment. Her reaction was priceless. She was absolutely thrilled and couldn't wait to start using it. The combination of a special venue, the love and support from everyone around us, made it an occasion we'll always cherish for years. Now, places. Describe a place you visited that has been affected by pollution. I'll talk about the library, but I'm going to make some changes to be more suitable to the question. Nothing else changes, just some info removed. I want to talk about a library garden I used to visit that has unfortunately been affected by pollution. I first discovered this beautiful spot while playing tennis nearby with my friend Bean, who's also a comedian. After our games, we'd often unwind in the garden, and Bean would occasionally perform stand-up comedy at the garden's cafe. The garden used to be a perfect retreat, nestled in a remote area surrounded by lush greenery. Its tranquility offered a welcome escape from the hustle and bustle of city life. However, things have changed. Last month, on my daughter's birthday, she asked for a new iPhone because she had cracked the screen on her old one. Instead of getting her the phone, I decided to give her something with more educational value. So we went to the library to pick out some books. When we arrived, I was shocked to see how much the library garden had deteriorated. The once pristine air quality has declined dramatically. The increased traffic and nearby construction projects have introduced pollutants, making the air feel heavy and unpleasant to breathe. The trees and plants, once vibrant, are now struggling with grime coating their leaves. Noise pollution is another issue. What was once a quiet sanctuary has become noisy, with the constant hum of traffic and construction disrupting the peace that used to define the garden. And then there's littering. With more visitors coming to the area, the garden is now littered with trash, plastic bottles, food wrappers, and other debris scattered around. The charm I remember is totally gone due to the downsides of urban life. Witnessing the impact of pollution on the library garden was truly disappointing. It's a strong reminder of how quickly urbanization and pollution can debilitate even the most cherished places. In conclusion, to ace the speaking part 2, you want to prepare some model subjects and practice how to combine them together to create a beautiful storyline. This way, you don't have to worry about running out of things to talk about in the exam room. That's the end of the video. Hope you find it useful, and good luck with your IELTS preparation.